give us a count.
Okay.
Okay, great. Hello, everyone. My name is Trisha Keith, and I'm an end of embodiment doula. And we are recording again Skeleton Woman, which was written by Clarissa Pinkola Estes, adapted by the five-line poem Inuit elder Mary Yukulet shared with her and is featured in her book Women Who Run with the Wolves. I'm visiting with Pashta MaryMoon again today. And Pashta is a death midwifery practitioner. She is my mentor and friend and collaborator. And we're going to talk a little more and deeper about Skeleton Woman and what we find intriguing about the story and how it helps us make sense of things. So, welcome again, Pashta.
I am delighted to be here with you, Tricia.
Great.
It's always great talking to you and the things that we pull out in the conversation.
Like the skeleton woman from the water.
Yeah, right. Yes.
Right. Yes.
Old bones.
The bones. Yep. Yep. And the bones and the soul. Um Now, before we recorded, we were hovering over the space in the story where Pinkola Estes writes that the fish ate her flesh and plucked out her eyes. And you
Yes.
brought that to my attention, and maybe you can riff a bit on why you brought that forward.
Um, well, as I said before, that could be just filling out the sentence. There the fish ate her flesh away was kind of a brief sentence. So, plucking out her eyes might be just something to add. But it also occurred to me that if it's meaningful, then it means that she didn't do anything wrong, but her father um, disapproved anyways, threw her into the sea, threw her away of no worth. And as a result of that, she loses her own vision. Um, so her
Yeah.
sight is taken away from her, her ability to interact with the world on the sight level is gone, her own vision is gone. Um, and then it carries on, as we talked about in the story, the hunter, when he first gets a hold of her, he does not see the little coral creatures glinting in the orbs of her skull. He did not see the crustaceans on her old ivory teeth. So not only has the fish, ate away her flesh, but now these creatures are living off her bones.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and she's sort of like she's totally out of control. She's lost her flesh, her ability to sort of fill herself out in relation to the rest of the world. But she's not only lost her flesh, she's losing her bone, some of her bone marrow too, because that's what I assume these creatures are eating, uh,
Right.
or the calcium in them, or whatever it is that they're taking from her.
Mm-hmm.
So it just seems like, having been rejected by her
Mm-hmm.
father, she just loses, like, she's not just down to the bones. She's less than that because these little creatures are um, absorbing uh,
Mm.
from her bones. I mean, the way that fetus is absorbed from our bones when we're carrying them,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so it she's just lost so much of herself. She can't see herself. She
Mm-hmm.
can't interact with the world, and the world
Mm-hmm.
is feeding off of her.
Right. Right. She's lost herself. She's dissolving. She's dissolving in the ocean of totality. Like she's being composted, but she's also um she's losing her form.
yeah, and even that which holds up her form, even
Mm,
that something could be built on, right? Because that's the bone structure, the skeleton. Um, so yeah, she's really, um, and yet there's something about the inlet being haunted.
mm,
Story says, that he had gone far away from his home place, so he didn't know this inlet. Other people knew not to go there because it was haunted,
mhm,
and yet, um, and this is all underwater. So, like you were talking about, this is the unconscious. Um, it's like something. It doesn't seem like she's able to interact with the
mm,
people who come to the inlet or no longer come to the inlet,
mm,
but they
mhm.
know that it's haunted. Something is, um, I mean, when something is haunted, it means that there's some kind of energy.
There's been a harm.
Yeah, there's been a harm, and there's some kind of energy that is um, present in that space that is tangible,
Hmm.
and so her trauma is tangible to the people
Hmm.
who come, and that they've learned not to come anymore because it's not something they want to deal with.
Hmm.
Um, and in this story, I mean, you could say that they don't want to deal with the misogynism of
Hmm.
what's going on here with her father. Um, it could be just the death and a traumatic death that's haunting the place. But she actually is interacting with the world, but in a way that she has no awareness of
Or control over.
or control over. Yes.
It's not, there's no sense of self actualizing or she's not a creative player.
No,
She's being used.
she
Um,
is. And yet there is this energy that is telling people stay away. You don't want to get involved in this. You don't want to have to face this.
and that may be the level of oppression that they all feel of the force of rationality. Like I really see the father as as a depiction of the rational over the mystical or the visionary or the the emotional intelligence. The rational
Mhm.
intelligence is dominating and has thrown away the value of anything that is outside of the rational limits. There are very strict limits to rationality, but with the mystical and the imaginative, and there are no limits. The imaginary can go anywhere. And the sensual is not restricted to one area only. Sensual is whole body, is a perceptual field, and and it's an intelligence too, and it can't be. Well, perhaps it can't be measured, but the rational mind can easily poo-poo things and disvalue them and invalidate them. And yeah, I see her as being so invalidated in being tossed away that she herself has lost her vision of what she once carried and also her ability to say no. Like that was what I think got her in quote unquote trouble in the beginning. If I'm relating this to the myth of Sedna, I'm assuming that this is an extension of the Sedna myth. I don't know if that's intended or not, but she didn't. The father disapproved of her. Uh, there's a couple of different iterations of it, but the father either disapproved of her husband, or the father disapproved that she wanted to leave her husband. it turned out her husband was not the man she expected. So, um, yeah, kind of went off on a tangent there.
There's an interesting part too, like when he kind of catches hold of, I think it's one of her bones or something that he catches on its in his net or on the end of his hook.
Mm-hmm.
Um, she's struggling to disentangle herself,
Mm-hmm.
and the more she struggles, the more tangled in the lines she gets.
Mm.
And I know all right now, all it reminds me of is like when you've had like a really traumatic experience and you try to pull yourself out of it, and it just feels like everything you try to do is tangled up and doesn't work, and other people don't understand you, um, and
Mm-hmm.
it's almost like the dynamic is trying to tell you don't don't try anything because you're just going to get more tangled in um, may not be the trauma itself, but the fact that people can't understand what happens to people who have gone through major traumas. Um,
Or it's a disapproval that their disapproval is still so impossible and impenetrable. And you're trying to prove yourself, you're trying to prove your point, and they're impenetrable.
yeah, I mean, in this case, it sort of ends up being useful to her because
Mm-hmm.
she's
Mm-hmm.
dragged upwards,
Mm-hmm.
up, up out of the ocean, so therefore out of the unconscious, and and eventually is healed. But there is that period. I mean, what is occurring to me right now is like being um, being an addict,
Yeah.
and it's just all of that time where you fall, you slip, and you have to start all over again, for your 30-day chip. And
Yeah.
you have to go through that multiple times, and people get to the point where they don't believe you anymore that you're really trying. And maybe
Mm.
you do actually manage, to go for years and years without slipping again. But during that first period where you're trying to get out of the trauma, trying to get out of the addiction or whatever it is,
Yeah.
um, there's so many things can get you tangled and drawn back into it.
Yeah. 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 As it is with any new growth, right? When you're like what you say, coming out of trauma. Um, yeah, it's can you can easily spiral back into it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and actually make it worse, because the tangling can cause um, even more damage, essentially, or things get tangled up more, so it's even more impossible to get out of the addiction. Um, I mean, I know that from knitting, when there's a point when the thread gets tangled, you
Yeah.
just gotta break it and start all over again. It's no undoing it.
Oh. Uh-huh. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a heavy story. It's got so much um yeah, it's just laden with meaning wherever you seem to hover. And so there was something else that you said earlier before started recording about having to face the bare bones of things.
Yeah. In the story, when he finally, gets his net out of the water, and she's all tangled up in it. Um, he says, ah, and his heart fell into his knees, his eyes hid in the terror in the back of his head, his ears blazed bright red. And when I looked at that, I thought, that is the way we feel when we're faced with the bare bones of things. Um, our heart sinks to our knees.
Mm.
Our eyes are just like kind of like I'm trying to pull back so I don't have to see this.
Mhm.
His ears blazing right red. I mean, that usually means like um, certainly there's a rush of emotion going on, right? Because
Mhm.
your ears get red when you flush,
Mhm.
and um, and it might be out of embarrassment or terror or all kinds of things. But what he's doing in that moment is facing her bare bones. But
Mhm.
the meaning of it, you know, because the two of them become kind of one in the end, they are, like the anima animus
Mhm.
polarity kind of thing. So they're in the story, they're not totally separate beings, I
Mhm.
think. And so when he sees her bare bones, he's pushed to his own bare bones. Um, and then there's also the whole thing we're talking about where, you know, um, a skeleton bare bones is, something that is dead. Um, and it doesn't, with the flesh gone, it doesn't have the ability to live
Yeah.
more. So he's facing the bare bones of things and perhaps bare bones of things in his own life,
Yeah.
um, but also facing the death of this person whose bones have been dragged up by his net.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, facing death, facing the very certain end of things. And yeah, when we use that phrase, facing the bare bones, it's like there's no more kidding around. There's no
Mm-hmm.
more pretending. Um, the reality is harsh, and we're left with the bare bones.
At that point, he screams, he knocks her off the bow with his oar and begins paddling like a demon towards the shoreline. And not realizing she's tangled in his line, he was frightened all the more, for she appeared to stand on her toes while chasing him away to the shore. I was trying to figure out what does it mean that she's standing on her toes. I mean, that is such an unexpected
Mm.
part of the story. I mean, she's this jumble of bones that are all tangled up in his neck. How could she be standing on her toes,
Mm-hmm.
chasing him all the way to shore? Like, obviously, she's chasing him because he's actually pulling her. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, but what does it mean that she's standing on her toes? Like standing on your tippy toes.
Yeah, that to me gave me a sense of how like what a giant figure she is. That she was, quite over top of him because he's sitting down in his kayak,
Right.
and then she's quite tall, um, hovering over him. For me, that gave me a very looming image over him,
Mm-hmm.
and that there's something kind of comical to that because we've seen it in children's cartoons. He thinks someone's chasing you, or the character thinks there's someone chasing them, but actually they're pulling that something right behind them. So
Hmm.
you are actually implicated in this story, like you were saying, the anima and the animus, that they are bound together. They haven't figured out yet how they're figuring it out. Um, and they both started to make some pretty clear choices towards the end of moving towards one another. Um, But at this point, he's terrified, and um, I don't know if there's an indication. Oh, she's starting to munch along the way, isn't she? She's starting to eat the frozen fish.
Yeah, not quite at that point, but before he actually gets home
Uh-huh.
and starts dealing with her tangled bones.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah.
What did you feel about the tippy toes?
Um, I don't think I've caught all of it yet, but I mean, it evokes that image, of the spectral figure, because they're always floating just above,
Oh yeah.
you know. Um, so and before, the inlet was haunted because of her presence there, right? So as a specter, she could be a haunting specter, but I don't think that she's a negative haunting specter. Like,
No.
I'm still trying to struggle with it, Trisha, because there's something there,
Mm.
and a reason why the storyteller would put that in
Mm-hmm.
when it's so opposite to her being a bunch of bones tangled up in a net.
Right.
It's
That
almost like her spirit,
rises up.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and
That
something that
she's
she wasn't able to do before. But when he
mm-hmm.
pulls her out of the water,
Mm-hmm.
uh,
Oh, there we go. Pulls her out of the unconscious.
yeah,
Mm-hmm. She gains a new shape, and she takes on um maybe even a more terrifying figure for him. I don't know. But like you say, a kind of specter. Um,
well, maybe more terrifying. I mean, he is terrified because he's paddling off like a demon. Uh,
mm,
but I think this whole thing we're talking about with the animus, like, there's a part of himself that he he hasn't dealt with, and
mm, mm,
she sort of rises up as a specter, and
mm,
that's all sort of really connected too to the bare bones of things, even though they're like
mm-hmm,
total opposites, but they have a similar sense. And in the end, they resolve that.
mm-hmm,
Um, so at this point, though, he's just terrified of it. But it's something that has risen up for him to resolve, as
mm-hmm,
much as him pulling her out of the the ocean opens up something she has to resolve.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So there's a beginning to be, in a sense, um, uh, an equality here. They're both dealing
Mm,
with something that they
mm,
need to resolve.
mm-hmm. Yeah, that's embodied in the other.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, so she's out of the water, and she's out of the unconscious, and he's making his way to the land, and on her way across the land as he's making his way to his igloo, she eats some frozen fish, so she starts to consume, which she hasn't done in quite some time. Starts to gorge. I don't know if she's actually gorging, but um, that word was used. And then he crawls into his space and thinks he's free of her, thinks he's run away from her. He's home. He feels safe. Guess what?
There she is.
There she is.
One
There she
heel,
is.
one heel over her shoulder, one knee inside her rib cage, 1 foot over her elbow. And then it says, he could not say later what it was. Perhaps the firelight softened her features, or in fact, he was a lonely man. But a feeling of some kindness came into his breathing. And I keep thinking, how could the firelight soften her features? Like she doesn't actually have any features, she's just a bunch of bones. So how does the firelight soften her features?
Well, I think the candlelight or the firelight softens everything, right? The light is
True
so
that.
soft, and um, I don't know where I heard that, under with candlelight, people are more honest. It's kind of like a non-alcoholic beverage type thing. It's
Mm-hmm.
like not the alcohol, but it's the ambiance of, okay, I can take my mask off
Mm-hmm.
and I feel safe and everything's subdued. The edges are softer, um, and I can relax. It's almost like there is a meeting like of the soul self in candlelight. The soul can walk into the room and find its way in the body. And I'm just imagining this now. Um, and I would say that she does have features. They're bones, but they are features, and that they can look really beautiful in firelight and take on their own shape-shifting quality too
Right.
in the firelight.
Yeah.
Um, and and that would be the light that the fisherman is accustomed to in the night, is that kind of shape-shifting uh, light that lends itself to um, whatever it is your unconscious brings forward too. Like, am I seeing a bear or am I seeing a log?
Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah, to see your
Right.
fears, but to also see your hopes, your dreams, your
Right.
fantasies.
Right. So it's much easier for him to actually see
Mm.
some features because it
Mm.
isn't
Ah.
the bare bone starkness of out there, on the ice in daylight. It this He's in the dark with the firelight, and it it as you say, it's a shape shifting feature
Hmm.
of firelight, and he's being allowed to actually see the non scary spectral part of her.
Hmm. Hmm.
And I think too, you were saying that the soul is allowed in. I think it's also allowed out
Mm.
in firelight or candlelight. Um, it's kind of we always do ritual in
Mm.
in candlelight or firelight. There's that sort of, it kind of opens things up,
Mhm.
um, and it has this weird capacity to hide and reveal at the same time.
Yeah, yeah,
To
yeah, yeah,
shift
yeah, yeah.
to shift how what's hidden and what's revealed.
Hmm. 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 Yeah, it's like the rational mind can soften. It can just the volume can get turned down on the rational mind, and the more mystical, visionary can can get louder. And yeah,
It's
uh, go ahead.
Oh, it's just interesting this as he begins to untangle her from the fishing line. He says, "Oh na na na." I wonder what "oh na na na" means, because we would hear "na na na na" as more like a variation of "no."
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think that that's
Mm-mm.
necessarily what it means.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this story was originally given to the person who wrote it down by
Mm-hmm.
was it Inuit elder, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was. So the na 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 would be in her culture. What does
Yeah.
that mean?
Yeah.
And
Yeah, I imagine it to be a kind of soothing lullaby. Um,
yes, actually, because it says here, and using words soft like a mother to a child.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So now that
And
he's lost his fear, he's sort of trying to comfort her out of whatever she's feeling
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
as he entangles her.
And he's moving into his feminine space as a mother to a child.
Mm-hmm.
He's moving into his mother, his nurturing self. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It might even be something like, oh, there,
Mm-hmm.
oh, there.
Yeah. And in the end, he dresses her in furs to keep her warm, and her bones are, as it says in the story, all in the order a human should be,
Hmm.
which means she's sort of finally back at a stage where she can start blooming into her humanity. Like it's kind of like he's sorted her bones out to the point where she can start infleshing herself. She hasn't yet, but she can because he's given her that.
And
And
also, it like refers back to what you were saying about the bare bones of things. There's been perhaps, um, I don't want to say reconciliation, but like a reordering or um, there's there's been an understanding of the bare bones of things. There's been an acknowledgement of the bones.
the other
They're in the right place now. So there's a
yeah,
kind of justice.
the other thing, Trisha, is that you're talking about with the rational mind, all in the order a human should be. They were in the
Mm.
rational mind. So the rational mind at this point in him has it has softened, but it's still there. He's making use of it, like he's singing to her or using words like a mother to a child, but he is doing the work of putting things in order.
Yes, yes, yes.
So he himself is actually like beginning to balance his sides out as
Hmm.
his work.
And acting responsibly, acting consciously and responsibly. He's doing what his role is intent, like what's intended in his role.
Yeah.
And then she has the coat on. And all this while, she's been very, very quiet because she's terrified that he might, in fact, throw her over the cliff and shatter her bones to pieces. So, out of, as a trauma response, she goes into like freeze mode and is just going to be quiet, play it safe. Silence is safe, or at least we think it is. And
And he hasn't hurt her yet. Like he hasn't given any sign that he's going to hurt her.
mhm, mhm. And then he falls asleep. And that to me is a sign that he trusts her enough to let himself shift into a sleep state.
Right. And then a tear escapes from the dreamer's eye, and it can be the result of a dream of sadness or longing. And the story says this is what happened to the man. Um, so maybe he's longing for her to be enfleshed, um, so that he can fully be with her.
Mhm,
And
mhm,
it did say earlier he was a lonely man. Um, so we kind of assume that he doesn't have a wife or a partner, um, and he isn't quite to the point yet of being able to say that he wishes that the skeleton woman was more of a flesh body woman.
mhm,
Um, but in his dreams, that the dream allows him to recognize that he longs for that.
mhm, mhm. And she is is encouraged by his vulnerability,
Mm-hmm.
that he has enough heart to have a tear, right? Because when your heart opens, your face leaks.
Yeah.
And so this tear has emerged, and she drinks from it and drinks from it and drinks from it. And that is a bit of a mystery to me. Like, what does she find? So that tear it also tells me that the tear, there's an infinite supply of that tear, that she could keep drinking from that if she wanted to. Um, but also how does his vulnerability nourish her? Um, and I ask this of myself too, like as a facilitator of traumatic loss grief support groups, I find these groups quite nourishing at times.
Mm-hmm.
That there's
A rawness, an openness.
and something sublime there too.
Hmm.
Um,
The other I think is that at this point in the story, he is exactly the opposite of her father.
mhm.
He's gotten over his
Oh my
fear
gosh.
of her.
Yes.
He has put her back together, like he has supported her to actually, be a functional skeleton. He has trusted her. Um, so utterly different from her father. I mean, we can only imagine what her father was because we don't know a lot of that. That's
Hmm.
part of the story. Um,
Hmm.
but we can imagine, his a father who was condemning to the point that he would throw her into the ocean,
Hmm.
and how this man, this hunter that she's with now, is just like the total opposite of that.
Hmm.
He hasn't condemned her, even though she's just bones. She's so much less and so much more frightening than she was when she was thrown into the ocean.
Right.
Yet he loses his fear of her, and he trusts her enough to go to sleep. And that's just like quenching this like
Mm.
existential thirst.
Hmm. Intimacy thirst, a thirst for intimacy.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it is. It's intimacy that vulnerability allows us to feel.
Yeah. And it says the single tear was like a river.
Mm.
And, but it's interesting too, because there's no such thing as a water. There are
Hmm.
a single tear of water, there's an ocean of water, but there's an interesting thing where the tear is no different than the ocean, um, or a river. So that single tear, it goes to that what you were talking about of being able to like supply or quench a thirst, um, that's like a hell of a lot more than a single tear in the way we think of it. And then it says she drank and drank and drank until her many years long thirst was slaked. And it's just like that repetition of drank and drank and drank. It's like she's swallowing almost a whole river. Um, and then her many years long thirst. I suspect that that goes beyond the time, back farther than being in the ocean. The thirst from the kind of person her father was in her life.
Uh,
Um,
uh, yeah, it's so healing, the healing waters, right?
yeah,
That cleanse and purify and that we draw up from the well.
right. That's what I was
And
thinking too. That the single tear is like a well. When you take one suck, if you've got a long tube that goes into the well, you take one suck and it starts flowing and it just keeps flowing and flowing and flowing, even though you're not sucking on the tube anymore.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
Um, yeah,
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah. And then what happens? And then she reaches inside. Does she reach inside next and
yep.
take the drum of his heart?
Well, she takes his heart itself,
Uh-huh.
and um, she bangs on both sides of it, like she's drumming on it,
Yeah.
and she begins to sing out flesh, flesh, flesh. And the more she sang, the more her body filled out with flesh.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
There's some saying that I haven't quite caught yet that has something about the heart and flesh.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'm not catching it right now, but she's using the beat of the heart, like so almost like she's beating blood the way heart does.
Yeah.
And as she's beating that blood, the blood itself is um, transforming itself into flesh. You know,
Mm-hmm.
it is what feeds the flesh so that it can exist. And that's
Mm-hmm.
where all the nourishment comes through, is through the blood.
Mm-hmm.
So as
Mm-hmm.
she's drumming on this heart,
Mm-hmm.
its blood is actually not just feeding the flesh. It's almost like it's taking a tiny, tiny, infinitesimal small amount of flesh that's left on her
Mm-hmm.
and allowing it to grow and grow and grow and grow.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And that she is now self-creating. Now she is birthing herself, so to speak. But it's with his, it's through an attunement with the other,
Mhm.
right? The attunement to the heart, the musical instrument, and and singing, and also the vocalization of what she wants, right? Casting the spell of what it is I am creating into the world. Um, and as we know from ritual, the words we say are what we create. That's how we create our worlds, through our words.
And
Um,
all the more so if we are singing and we are drumming, because those two things add um, something that simply saying the words can't produce. Um,
embodied.
yeah, definitely embodied. And she says, the story it says she sang for hair and good eyes and nice fat hands.
Oh,
As I was saying before, like being fat in that culture was a good thing,
uh-huh,
right?
uh-huh.
Because you know um, your body's able to keep warm, and it also means something you point out. It means you're rich.
Mm-hmm,
It means your life is full.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
Um,
mm-hmm.
she sang the divide between her legs. You know,
Mm.
rebuilding her womanhood, breasts
hmm
long enough to wrap her warmth and all the things a woman needs. Yeah, she's like bit by bit, she is rebuilding herself as a woman, but also herself as herself, as not what her father thought she was.
Yeah.
And when she's all done, she also sang the sleeping man's clothes off and crept into his bed with him skin to skin. Just now they're parallel, right? They are becoming like one.
And he's still in the dream state.
Mhm. Yeah. He's not
Yes.
really quite choosing this on a
Yeah.
not on a conscious level,
No.
but
No.
he's put himself in a position for her to be able to do this.
hmm Yes. Yes. So if we're thinking about consensual, it's um she is the one that I've just been recently learning about the wheel of consent. He is the one that's taking, but he is the one that's sharing of himself.
Mm. So
And
go ahead.
and and acting really boldly, that she is the one that is initiating this skin to skin contact. Um, and so I would venture to say that she's got her confidence back. She's got her eyes back. She's got her good hair. She's got her fat hands. She's got the divide between her legs. She's got her long breasts, and she's ready to bring this man into her. And yeah, and then what does it read next, Pashta?
She returned the great drum, his heart, to his body, and that's how they awakened, wrapped one around the other, tangled from their night. In another way now, a good and lasting way.
Oh, that's so beautiful.
Yeah, I love this tangled from their night in another way now. Beautiful.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, that we can imagine another way of men and women um, behaving with one another, that it doesn't have to be oppressive.
It isn't just men and women too. It's sort of the parts of ourselves,
Mm,
right? I mean, because we all have parts that are more female-like, more male-like in the stereotypes.
hmm
So in the story, I really see not only them coming together, but the woman has come together in herself. The man has come together in his self. He's come to trust. He's come to be tender and nurturing. So he's
hmm
put that part of himself back into
hmm
reality, right? So they've both um, taken polaric parts of themselves and been able to find a way to tangle them in a healthy way.
Yeah, that they've taken themselves on a healing journey. They've taken themselves into therapy or some other form of let's let's um let's take our relationship to a new level. That's stepping out of naivete and fantasy and all the baggage that we carried from our family, our unmet personal psychology that our family imprinted with us, that is going to come up in a relationship,
Mhm.
whether it's hetero or homosexual, it doesn't matter. It's going to come up, and the roles we play, right? Um, but then when we untangle it, then we have a chance at a really new relationship.
And one that can be tangled healthy. Like I had this
Yeah,
vision of
yeah.
um, some of the most beautiful weaving is
Mhm.
not the really thin, smooth, silk weaving. It's the ones that has all the nubbles and twists of color and
Mhm.
of that. So it's
Super textural.
textural, yes, and very sensual actually,
Mhm.
um,
Mhm.
and three dimensional. Whereas
Mhm.
silk is so two dimensional, and
Mhm.
and there's a really beautiful in that kind of beauty in that kind of tangling. Um,
Yeah. Yeah. Where you're not perfect. You're still human.
and you'd be boring if you were perfect.
Yeah. Yeah. But you just have so much more harmony and and less fear to look at your stuff
Yeah,
and to imagine another way.
right. And to build your life in a way that is unique. It isn't just built on somebody else's pattern, which I think is what her father wanted.
Right.
But
Right.
it's unique. It's her unique self. It's his unique self. It's their unique relationship.
Yeah, it's not a fantasy, it's real.
The end of the story says the people who cannot remember how she came to her first ill fortune say that she and the fisherman went away and were consistently well fed by the creatures she had known in her life under the water.
Hmm.
People say that it is true, and that is all they know.
Hmm. And that to me tells me that her episode of being in the water was not unfruitful, that was um, it was a necessary departure. It was a necessary growth period
Mhm.
in her conscious becoming, in the anima's conscious becoming.
There's the line, I think it's a Leonard Cohen song, something
Mm.
about breaks, and that's how the light gets in.
Yeah, the cracks.
Yeah. And it's pretty um, common thinking in psychology that people don't make breakthroughs until they're broken in some way,
They're broken.
you
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
And I mean, you have to. You can't just keep adding and adding and adding. You have to break something down for something new to be able to be formed. And and she's done that. And it's interesting too that now the creatures are feeding her, whereas before they were feeding off of her bones, right? And now they're feeding her to
Yes.
sustain her. And I think it's also too that like there's a point of the author saying that she'd known in her life under the water because she's now being fed by her unconscious.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
And so is he,
mm-hmm,
actually.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Which, to lead a creative life, that's what we want. We want to be fed by our unconscious as artists or as creators. We 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 want to make friends with the cycles of the unconscious, like how it feeds us. Sometimes we're really flourishing with our creativity. Sometimes we have dry periods, or however it is that we're focusing and just going through life, I guess. But this is the gift of getting older, isn't it? Is that there's a whole lot less fear of the unconscious, wouldn't you say, Pashta?
Um, I think so. I think so. I mean, I think there are people who are just so set in their ways and they don't look at life,
Right.
you know. But if you're actually aging as eldering,
Mm-hmm.
right? If you're eldering as well as aging, um, there's so many things um, that I've come to say. Um, I don't regret anything that I've done, and I don't regret the fact that I don't have to do it again.
Uh-huh.
So that's sort of all of that struggle and learning. I mean, there's still
Yeah,
struggles and
yeah,
stuff,
yeah.
um, but there's a place that you sort of come to a stronger sense of this is who I am. This is where it's important for me to push, but I don't have to push everything. I don't have to explore everything. And that actually
Mm-hmm,
allows
mm-hmm,
you to sort of move where your spirit is led.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, you fine tune things.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm,
And I also love this last line in the story that people say that it is true, and that is all they know. Like there's there's a statement here. Don't bother trying to make this all make sense, which is what we're doing.
mm-hmm,
But it's in that kind of rational way.
mm-hmm,
We're not going to tell you any more details. There are no more details that are important. It's a way of saying um, this is true because it speaks to the soul,
mm-hmm,
and that's
mm-hmm,
all you need to know.
mm-hmm,
You
mm-hmm,
don't take it apart and say, well, um, she couldn't possibly have influshed herself again. That's not possible. Or, this is not accurate to the way people live in the far north or something. That's irrelevant.
mm-hmm,
That's not what the story is about. It's about what you gain from it
mm-hmm,
in your own psyche.
mm-hmm. Exactly. Yeah. It's a healing story.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
for me, that last line speaks to faith, that there's a trust in that this is this, so be it, like it's blessed be. Let this be as it is, and so it is.
Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah. Well, thank you, Pashta. This has been a wonderful tour of the story, and I feel like we've just wrapped it with such I'm wrapping it with gratitude, having done it with you, and it's again I've learned so much, and I love our back and forth riffing and really creating as we go too. It's
Hmm.
a very creative journey, um, uh, playing with the story.
Yeah. And feeding off of each other in a healthy way. Um, and and I love just taking that time to actually pull out what it is that you get from the story. So you really sort of recognize, bring into the light by articulating what it is that you're seeing. And both of us have read this story multiple times, and we've already had
Hmm.
one discussion on it. And as we
Hmm.
go through it again this time, like a whole bunch of other things are coming out, which is how a true myth should work.
Hmm.
That every time
Hmm.
you read it, you see something different and it speaks to you in a different way.
Yeah, 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 yeah. And that's what I love about it too, that it's got so many places, like what grabs your attention. Like that's what I'm interested in these um, podcasts, is finding out with folks where did you get drawn into the story? What pulled your attention? Because there's something there for everyone, right? And but the wholeness of the story too is also where it's at.
And it's
Yeah.
also just really fun doing it with you, Tricia.
Oh, good. Why, thank you.
It's been great.
Yeah, well, I think we should close it off here, and And thank you everyone for listening. And thank you, Pashta. And let's see what else we can cook up together in the future.
All right, sounds great.
Bye.
Bye. Now I have to stop record.